You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Trick or treat, Lone Star Radio listeners. This is Dick, the general manager, taking this quick moment to remind you that Lone Star Community Radio is looking to fill some of our talk show slots along with some of our DJ slots. We have a new show airing on the 10th, Making Connections with Stacey Harris, which will air every second Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Make sure to check it out along with our other programs on Lone Star Community Radio. For more information on Lone Star Community Radio, visit us online at irlonestar.com. And again, if you're interested in doing something with us, call the station, 936-647-3776. Thanks for checking out this recording, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Welcome to the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and the host of the Weekly Business Hour. Thank you for joining us today. I think we have a lot to cover, and I want to get to it. Also, I hope that we have some ideas and suggestions that might help you in your business even today once we go off the air. Today, we'll start out with my thought for the week, teamwork. Our special business guest in the house will be Dick Schissler, owner of and GM of Lone Star Community Radio. In the expert corner, we have Chris Wehe joining us again. He works with Koch Insurance Group. Chris is going to talk to us a little bit about insurance coverage for your automobiles in the commercial setting. And I will close out today's show with the Silver Fox tip of the week. Who knew I would end up where I am today? So I encourage you, sit back, grab your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we talk about business right here on the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. And before we move on, I want to talk to you just a moment about the Silver Fox Advisors. As you heard when I started the show, I'm a Silver Fox Advisors. And one of the things we do, and I want to make you aware of this if you live and work in the greater Houston area, we offer CEO roundtables. These are roundtables of peers that meet on a monthly basis. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours of your time. So if you own a business and you're listening and you're located in the greater Houston area, consider joining one of our roundtables. There is no cost. We do this on a volunteer basis. They're wonderful places to talk about your ideas, take your challenges, put them out in a confidential manner to a group of fellow business people, and they will help you, I guarantee you, because I've been on the other side of the table as well. So reach out to the Silver Fox Advisors. Simply go to their website, www.silverfox.org, to get more information. If you have any questions beyond that, always feel free to call me. My number is 832-699-2132, or you can email me right here at the station, Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Well, let's start off with our thought for the week. Teamwork. That's something that if there are more than one of us in a business that we need to consider, because two or more, in my opinion, are a team. Charles Darwin once said, it's the long history of humankind, and animal kind for that matter, that those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. Well, I think Mr. Darwin is talking about teamwork. He's talking about collaboration, particularly within the company. And of course, there's collaborations outside, but collaboration in the company, in my opinion, starts first with, is everyone that works with you on the team? Are they on the same page? An expression I like to repeat often. You need to check that out. Make sure everyone, don't just assume it. Make sure in various ways of communication that everyone's on the team and moving forward towards common goals. And the second thing I'd like to mention today is take every chance you get. This costs you nothing, basically, to reinforce the team. Always handing out compliments when you can, putting people together, explaining how two or more can complete a task more effective, more efficiently. Other things such as training and also celebration of successes reinforce your team. Teamwork, one of the secrets to success of any business. Opportunities are right there in front of you, so grab them. The Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to hear from some of our own local business leaders on how they have found success right here in Montgomery County. And let me give you a quick reminder now before we move on and talk with our special business guest. The show is on Facebook. Just go to Facebook. Our page is the Weekly Business Hour page. I would encourage you to not only like us, but set up an alert so that when we post the podcast of each show each week, you will be alerted it's there. So in case if you listen live, you can catch up on something you might have missed. Or if you missed the show, you get a chance to look through who was on, the topics were discussed, and see if there's something of interest to you, and then you can listen at your leisure. Well, let me get right to it. Let's introduce our very special business guest, in my opinion, Dick Schissler, owner and general manager of Lone Star Community Radio. Dick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, I'm glad to have you on here, just for the sake of transparency, which is a big buzzword these days, particularly in government. Lone Star Community Radio, Dick is a client of mine, and I have been with the station for 5 years now. It's been in business come January, and I've been part of the mentoring and helping Dick get started. And the second thing I must divulge is Dick, I'm very pleased to say, is one of my sons. So I have a special interest in his business story, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. Well, Dick, let's start off talking about, just in general, Lone Star Community Radio and what its mission is here in the Montgomery County community.
To keep it short and simple, we serve Montgomery County as the community radio station here for everyone in Montgomery County.
Okay. Now, when it's community radio, I mean, that's a concept that, as you know, and you and I have discussed, so I've got a little bit of an edge over someone who might interview, but community radio, what's that all about?
Really what it is the way I looked at it was, what does the community need? Every community is a little different, and I've learned that being here for Montgomery County. What it is the people who are here on the air have some connection to the community here. That's the main idea I had. And I kind of let it take a life of its own in a sense. So overall, it's not me trying to choose this person. It's more if someone comes with an idea and I kind of say, is it relevant to the community? And they go, yes, it is. And I agree with them. And so that's what it is.
Well, the thing I also found that, and like you said, is that the neat thing about a community radio station in a broad sense is it brings, the government side, which can be the school districts, it can be a city, county government. It brings the private citizens. It brings the businesses, it brings the nonprofits. All of those things have a chance to have a platform in which to connect with the community in general.
Yeah, I mean, that's really is the idea because, we're so used to hearing and finding the ways where we want to hear our information. Community radio concept has been around for a long time, but it's what I noticed when I started the business 5 years ago, that there really wasn't something that was 24/7 live on the air in this community. And that's one thing I kind of chose Montgomery County, because Montgomery County had all walks of life from the north side of the county, south side, east and west. So it made sense that we could really have an impact here because there's so many different types of people. And a lot of people don't even know they need it. But in the end, for the emergency system, for example, 104.5, 106.1 serve the Conroe area and also areas in Willis and some in the Woodlands and things like that as an emergency. So during the hurricane, that's where the city of Conroe was making their messages to people, letting people know what's going on, because a lot of those outlets aren't available to people out here, and they don't know what to do because the internet goes down. And so that's why Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1 was actually born. It was to serve the folks in Conroe for emergencies.
Well, that's one thing that kind of leads into the next topic I'd like to discuss. One thing about your station is that it is broadcast across a wide array of media, let's just call it. I mean, you just mentioned the FM, Conroe City FM 106.1, 104.5. What are some of the other places people can listen to the programming of Lone Star Community Radio?
Well, it all depends on the programming itself, the show itself. We are broadcasting live online at irlonestar.com 24/7. Either that be music or it could be talk radio. You can see our calendar online at irlonestar.com, and it gives you an idea what's coming up that day or that month or that week. Outside of the live streaming on the internet, which you can download an app through your radio apps. Just look for us, or you can actually download our app on your app store on Android and Apple, or you can just visit the website at irlonestar.com for that. And then if you're in the Conroe area, if you tune in on the FM dial, 104.5, 106.1, and that's the live stream, I call it, like the live access. Now, outside the live access, majority of our programming is recorded and available on replay. You can replay it either through podcasting networks, which they have at Google Play or iTunes. You can subscribe to it, so you don't even have to wait. You just get a little ding, and then you download the episode, and you can listen to it. Then we're on YouTube. Most channels have their own YouTube channel. So, for example, the Weekly Business Hour. Just go to YouTube, the Weekly Business Hour. And then outside of online, we're also on TV, Channel 12 here in the Conroe area. Those who have Suddenlink as their TV provider, there's a Channel 12. It's an educational channel through the city of Conroe, and they run our programming. And soon, hopefully in the month of October, we'll make a final announcement for Channel 21 over in the Houston area on Antenna. So that's our big thing we've been working on, because a lot of our content is relevant to a lot of folks, and it's community-based. So luckily, we'll be spreading it's easy to spread the message because most people are welcoming it.
Well, and you make a great point, because if you go down to, say, Harris County or some of the other surrounding counties, a lot of what you talk about up here can attract people up into the Montgomery County area. So it is relevant. Let's talk about, the station broadcast a number of talk shows. How in the world did you find all the people to do these shows?
A variety of ways. Word of mouth, again, is probably the strongest element in any business, word of mouth, if anything, because that has the best results, in my opinion, so far, working here, doing this. But also, I went out into the community, went out to the Chamber of Commerce's, and also kind of identified what this area likes to talk about. So one of the biggest things that this community has here is, for example, the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. It has a big impact in this area. And folks who do not know who they are, please look them up, because they do a lot of services for free. And then they're also part of this community. So Master Gardeners, 4-H Club. And I identified, for example, that's a good idea. Let's see if we can get involved with them. Same thing with the Chamber of Commerce's, because some of the things just make sense. Other than that, it was word of mouth and people who have a desire to be on the radio. We have a sports show here, Jake from Sports Talk. Jake goes to Sam Houston, and he loves talking sports, and so we need a sports show. And I love having him on Wednesdays at 1. Things like that. I personally have my own morning show because I like to be on the radio myself. So I have 2 shows: Mornings of the Lone Star with my co-host Sean Thompson. We're here every morning, 8 to 10, playing music, kind of just joking around. And then we took over the 10 to 11 talk block section to do more of the nitty gritty, we call it. And then stuff like that. So really it depends on what the community wants. Because like I said, this is made by the community. Everyone you hear is someone either calls me up and says, hey, I want a show. Or it's someone who we approach because we see that their content is relevant to what the community might use.
It's a wonderful opportunity for people in our community. I want to talk about that a little more, but unfortunately we're at our first break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back in a few minutes and talk a little bit more with Dick about the opportunity for you in the community to be part of it through Lone Star Community Radio.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. Welcoming you back. We're talking in the studio today with Rick Schissler, Dick Schissler, I should say. Boy, there's that transparency again.
We
Dick
always
Schissler.
had that issue.
Yeah, this Dick Schissler, the owner and general manager of Lone Star Community Radio, where we're broadcasting right now. Before we leave the topic of talk shows, Dick, if people are interested in getting an idea of what kind of shows that you offer, where's the best place for them to look?
The best place for them to look for me, because I kind of have the up-to-date pulse on what's going on here. And to contact us, just go to the station, go to irlonestar.com, go to contact us, or you can call into the station message line. We have a message line, and it's 936-647-3776, or to email me at dick@irlonestar.com.
Well, and again, if you're listening and you have an idea about doing a talk show, even though you have no background in radio or TV, as most of the people, including myself,
that's one of
jump for
the
it.
thing when designing the procedures here, especially the goal of community radio. I kind of told myself, all right, at one point, there's no reason to say no to somebody unless until after I talk with them, because I've had people in here that have zero experience and they want to do something and they don't know exactly what that is, and the station's here to guide it. Really, we're here to help you out. Like if this is something a personal goal of yours, we'll try to help you achieve it. and then also keep you on the air. I mean, we've had people come in and have the craziest ideas, and I've told people no, I've told people yes, or how about you redefine it, come back to me, and stuff like that. We are getting to that level here, though, at Lone Star, where our programming is trying to fine-tune its quality, especially with the premise of being community radio. You kind of hear all sorts of things, but eventually, hopefully, I hope to be running is a tight ship on just getting the message out and getting people who want to hear it aren't finding it hard to find it and things like that. So,
well, again, you have an interesting opportunity. Just the basics. If I'm interested in a show, you gave me a phone number, you've given me a contact through the website. What are the basic steps again? So I won't be afraid of doing it.
I like to talk to you first in person. It's important to have the studio being part of the conversation. I love meeting people at the studio so they see our operation. One thing a lot of people don't know is they try to fill in the blanks before they come here. And then they're like, for example, most people, when they hear Lone Star Community Radio, they think we're part of the Lone Star college system here in Montgomery and also in Texas, and we're not. And then on top of that, they think we're country radio, country music, which makes sense because we're called Lone Star Community Radio. So to tell folks who are listening right now who want to get involved, I would like to talk to you first just to see if you're a good fit here and also what your story's about. So.
Well, and also you're very thorough in telling people what to expect, because setting those expectations is so important in business, as you know. Well, let's get down to some of the business ideas. I mean, back roughly 5 years ago, you were motivated to do this. What motivated you to start a radio station?
Well, I've always wanted to be a part of the community, and I know you want to use your own strengths to improve the community. And so some people are good at, say, numbers. Some people are good at motivation. Some people, and I happened to be, I felt good enough to organize and produce pretty much. And the concept came to me through you and just talking to you because I wanted to do something for me. And I wanted to combine that idea of helping the community with my strengths. And I saw the world kind of going this way, technology-wise, how easy it was to produce a show and how cheap it was, and also how you can do a grassroots kind of movement. The grassroots were kind of coming back when it came to entertainment. We kind of hit our peak when PBS kind of went downhill, in my opinion, like NPR went downhill. And that's one thing I kind of laughed at. I was like, if we have a service like this, like NPR, why aren't they serving the local communities instead of having an overall national message? Now, when I say NPR, I mean like the idea, the concept of NPR. And that's when it hit me, a community radio station. I can start that with little money because I didn't have to buy an FM. I can do all online, especially with the podcast idea and those kind of things, because a lot of people are now coincidentally going to a point where they like replays. They like it on their time instead of live 24/7. So that's what made us different from normal terrestrial radio is we record everything. So if you happen to miss it, you don't have to tune in at 11 a.m. on Mondays to hear the weekly business hour. You can actually just subscribe to you on podcast and also on the website. We put everything there. So if you miss the show and you really want to check it out, you can. And that to me has more of the community idea behind it, because we understand everyone's busy, but we want you to have access to the content.
To reinforce that idea about people wanting to do things on their own time, which I think is a huge trend, and it's been working itself up for 5-10 years now, in my opinion. My show, 90% of my listeners or more are to what we call a podcast. They listen when they want, even a year or two later.
It's funny, previously we were talking about the new people who never have any idea about talk shows. That's one of the hardest things I have to drill into them is folks who do not understand the power of YouTube and podcasts, because it allows people from all over the world to access you. It kind of blows people away when I say, hey, did you know that episode hit 250 downloads? And majority of them were not in Texas. So clearly somebody online found something and they spread it. I mean, it could be those Russian hackers, or it could be a friend that's on an army base over there in Afghanistan or something like that. The power of sharing is huge right now. And that's one thing I saw a benefit of doing the recordings and getting that verbiage down for people, because just tell them you're on a podcast. And if you take a room full of 10 people right now, all the age from 35 to 65, I would say by chance half of them know what a podcast is and know how to access a podcast, but the other half does not. So that's kind of we're trying to teach the other half the power of it.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great opportunity for people. One of the things I've found in being around the station for 5+ years is that community radio, sometimes people think that it's nonprofit, and I'm sure there are community radio stations out there that are run on a nonprofit basis like NPR and whatnot, but you're a for-profit business. How do you generate revenue here at the station?
We do it through sponsorships. Since we kind of have a hybrid system of traditional radio and then we have the video element now, we do it through sponsorships. To me, as a business, we're a small business. I don't have an accounting firm here in the studio. I don't have a sales force. So really, we try to keep everything simple. My grandfather has taught me to do the KISS approach to pretty much everything. And keeping it simple helped me streamline the process. So if we wanted to sell a sponsorship to somebody, we don't do a la carte. We don't let them really have a lot of options because it's more paperwork for us to do. That's more communication. Basically, we say, you like the weekly business hour? Here's what you get for this much money. This is what you get for this much money. Sponsor the show. Support the show. And that encompasses everything. So, for example, if someone sponsors your program, it encompasses the production work. So you're part of that sponsored program for as long as it's available. And that's it's kind of different for most people because most people think of radio. They think of, oh, we play a 30-second spot and it's gone. And then the same thing with TV. We paid for a 30-second spot on national television, like the NFL Super Bowl. I paid $1 million. I get that 1 seconds to get people's attention, and that's it. That was what we do here, because I kind of identified also that there's a lot of different businesses here. We don't have the Coca-Colas and things like that. We have the mom and pops, they like Conroe Coffee and other things like that, which I was like, how can we give them more bang for their buck and long-lasting sponsorships? So that's how we developed it. So every show has that kind of principle around it.
Yeah, the podcasts make it so convenient because that advertising when we're live like today, and it's there. It just keeps working for the advertiser. Well, let me ask you this. What has been the impact on the station of going FM, which happened earlier this year?
Really what it has, it's funny because I didn't really know what to expect. FM-wise, really what's helping is it gives us a nice polish. Our name has a little bit more polish to it since we can tell people we're on FM or available on FM. One thing I like, the positive part about that is those other 5 people who I spoke around, if we took 10 people together, well, they might not know podcasting, but they do know FM. They know how their radios work. So that covered that base. That's really the goal of all these different technology ways to listen is I kind of want to get everyone to have the ability to listen in. And especially if you're not a tech-savvy guy, I feel confident enough that most people at all ages know how to turn a radio on, maybe. But that's what I like about having that impact now, that I can tell people, oh, you don't know how online works? You don't know how to tune in online? Why don't you try on your radio? And that's how that's the impact I've seen, because I can continue having that conversation. And also on the sales side, it helps a lot because a lot of, I know when you're selling things and you're telling people the impact of the word FM has on over podcasts. 5 years ago, majority of people didn't know what podcasts were. So when I was trying to sell them on internet and internet radio and things like that, they didn't really get it. But then if ever I introduced the word FM, they would get it. And then they kind of didn't really care about the other stuff. But then when they get the other stuff included in the sponsorship, they're like, okay, great, it's more beef, that kind of thing.
It's as I make this comment as a business guy, to me, it's very impressive what you did earlier, go down the list of media where these shows, the talk shows particularly, are available, starting with FM and all the way down different podcasts, even TV. And if I'm looking at it, some place to put some advertised marketing dollars, it's just an impressive list that you're able to do through the community radio station.
Well, what's funny about that, and I know we're running off time, what's funny about that is most people don't get it when I say you get all 5 of these things included in your sponsorship. Most people are like, oh, how much does each one cost? And I kind of I go, I wish, we could, I'm always thinking, how do I sell this better to them? Because that's what always gets the hiccup. They're like, how do I get TV, radio, and podcasts? I'm like, it's all inclusive in this one thing. And it's kind of challenging because it sounds too good to be true. But to be honest, the reason I like it is it keeps it simple for me.
Well, and it also, once you create that content, the ability to use it, content's always been the big challenge for people in writing or whatnot. So that's a cool thing. Well, as we wind up, we've got about a minute left. Share with us, if you can, what is the future of community radio and specifically Lone Star Community Radio?
Well, the future of community radio really, it encompasses what the community is doing at that time. Like I said, I identify Montgomery County as a really strong a suitable community radio station just because of the dynamics that are here. For Lone Star Community Radio, the next thing I'm trying to work on is doing 24/7 live broadcasting. Now, I know I said we're 24/7, but that just means we have music available with PSAs and things like that. I would love to eventually hit 24 hours. Somebody's in the studio telling you what's going on, having fun, doing their own shows. So if you're interested in having you're a late night person, you want to DJ music, call the station, 936-647-3776. We do volunteer DJ spots. So that's allows us to allow anybody from the community, really, after we talk to them and do some normal procedural work, like you can be a DJ. And a lot of people never knew they could have that answered until they contacted us. So,
well, I think you offer tremendous opportunities to people looking for something to do, whether they be in college, like Jake, who's engineering for us today, or they're semi-retired, retired, and maybe have experience in the industry, maybe not. Done a wonderful job, if I can compliment you on the volunteer aspect. Well, Dick, we really appreciate you taking time, because I know you're really busy today, to join us and kind of give us the background on Lone Star Community Radio. If people want to reach out to you, talk about any subject, volunteering or a show or whatever, what's the best way for them to reach you?
That would be through email. I'm on the air majority of the time, so I can't answer my phone. So dick@irlonestar.com, dick@irlonestar.com. Before we get off there, I do want to tell another aspect of the community radio is we go out to live events and broadcast live. So to get people kind of interested, October is now one of the biggest months here in Montgomery County for fundraisers. We have the Catfish Festival down here. But this weekend, we're going to be at 3 events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're going to be live broadcasting from the Lobster Fest golf tournament. All of our Friday shows will be live on the golf course, all of our talk shows, and then a morning show. And then on Saturday, we're going to be out there at the Texan Heritage Festival over there in Montgomery, right after Grit and Grace at 10 a.m. So I think it's between 10 and 3. We're going to be out there having fun. And then that's a $5 event if you want to come. Lobster Fest is a closed event. And then on Sunday, we're going to be out at the Woodlands Barbecue. Bless you, Jake. We're going to be at the Barbecue Festival supporting pulmonary hypertension over there at Town Green Park. And that's going to be, I believe that event starts at 1, but we're going to be out there a little early doing the support of the community, inviting people out, and especially going on like what's happening here on the grounds. That's one thing I'm trying to do with the station is we have the ability to go remote, and it's a beautiful thing because it gets us more involved with the boots on the ground concept of what's going on in the community. And as like I said, there's 3 events. One's in Conroe, one's in Montgomery, and one's in the Woodlands. So we try to go all around Montgomery County to get involved. Okay,
Dick, we're over time, but I
deeply
appreciate you coming on.
I think the owner will be okay with it.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope we don't get reprimanded too much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Lone Star Community Radio. Our guest today, Dick Schissler, the owner and general manager of the station. I ask you to please stay with us. When we come back, we're going to have Chris Wehe back in the studio with the Koch Insurance Agency, and we're going to talk about business insurance, particularly commercial auto liability. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. Broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host for the Weekly Business Hour. Thank you for joining us today. We made it through half our show, and we're on the upside on the back half. And as usual, I like to bring us expert, and I mean a true expert, into the studio to talk to us about a variety of subjects, and we have one such expert with us today. Chris Wehe is with us. Chris, as you may remember, is with the Koch Insurance Group. Always has good advice, in my opinion, based on my experience, about the right thing to do with your business insurance. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, you've told me already that you're busy right now. What all of a sudden is the business all about? Why all of a sudden have people needing to look at their insurance?
Well, I think with a lot of things that have been happening now, people are looking obviously at flood coverage. Even on businesses, you still need flood coverage, and looking to their business is expanding, obviously, with a lot of the rebuilding and stuff, a lot of contractors are expanding their operation and need additional coverage. And also a lot of times people are just looking to check their coverages, check the premiums to make sure they're still getting the best deal with the best coverage.
You know, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and we'll do a little bit later in the show, and that's the importance of making sure you understand what kind of coverage you are getting, because buying insurance is not just a carte blanche, you know, one form, one type of insurance. But before we do that, let's talk about commercial auto, which is kind of our focus today. For those businesses, and even if you need to listen if you're a sole proprietor, because I personally have been there, and I had an auto in the business, which the business was me, but I had a commercial policy covering my vehicle because it was very important to my business, and I used it every day and took people places and did things. Let's talk about commercial auto. What's so important about it?
Sure. Actually, that's one of the lines of insurance we get the most questions on. Do I need a commercial auto insurance policy, or does my personal auto insurance policy cover business use? And unfortunately, it depends. If the car is registered, or any vehicle is registered in the company name, you need to have commercial insurance. And then also, kind of depends on what you're doing with your business. If you have attached equipment to a vehicle, that would be a commercial use of the vehicle, and it wouldn't be covered under your personal policy. And you would need to look at getting a commercial auto insurance policy. Also, if you deliver goods, caterer, for example, if they're delivering food or anything like that, that would not be covered, generally would not be covered under personal auto policy, and you would want to look at getting a commercial auto policy. Because if you don't, and you do get in an accident, your personal auto policy may not cover any kind of damages or claims against you, and you would be on the hook for damages, liability, or anything like that if your personal auto policy would deny the claim.
You know, I think that's one thing that business people or people in general don't get. We have a personal policy, and we've paid hopefully good attention to what it covers, but there are a lot of things in it when we come to business, or really there's not that much, but when you go look at those clauses about what it might cover in your business, my experience is it doesn't really cover a whole lot if you're truly on that, as I call it, business mission.
That's correct. There are certain professions that usually are covered under a personal auto policy. Like a Mary Kay person would be covered. Real estate agents are generally covered under your personal auto policy. Obviously, check your policy and talk to your agent, but they're generally covered. But if your employees are using your vehicles, even if you own that car personally, that's a business use of that vehicle, and that driver is not on your policy. Your personal auto policy claim could be denied if they're in an accident. Also, even if it's a small amount of business use, usually they say 3 times. If you're using your vehicle more than 3 times a month for business use, then you really need to look to see about getting a commercial auto insurance policy. Also, Also, if a lot of times businesses want to do business with other businesses, and those businesses have insurance requirements. And one of the things that we try to do is try to get an estimate for premium, so when they're looking at doing that type of work, they know how much the insurance is going to cost, because if they don't, then that's going to eat into their profits, and you're better off having that up front, so you know how much it's going to cost. And when you're bidding a job, for instance, you know how much all those insurance requirements are going to be, so you can obviously continue to make money when you're bidding a job.
Well, you know, I think you really hit on an important point, and this is something that generally, I don't know what percentage, but a good percentage of people, when it comes down to insurance and some other things in their life, they don't feel the need, or they're concerned about being too transparent. And, you know, the idea that you need to sit down with an agent who's qualified, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but you really do need to be honest about what you do in your business, particularly if you're trying to stretch your personal policy, your personal auto to cover you in your business. Because if you're not honest about it, or you're not forewarned, say, well, if you give the keys to an employee and ask them to make a delivery, you may not be covered. I mean, you need to hear that. Now, you've got to make that choice, right, whether you're going to buy the insurance or not commercial. But do you find it hard for people to be transparent about what they're actually going to be doing in their business?
Yeah, we do. Sometimes a lot of people equate more information to more money, and that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times it just has to do with getting the right types of coverage. A lot of times, if we have enough information, we can say, well, you really don't need that type of coverage. Just this will work for what you want. And it will give us options. You know, well, you can do this, but not this. This is going to cost this much. So the more we know, the better we can fit that policy to what your needs are. And in the instance where something bad happens and you don't disclose everything, that claim can be denied by the insurance company because you did not disclose it, a certain business use, when we asked the question. And we would hate for that to happen. Nobody likes that. You get frustrated, we get frustrated, and it's hard for it. We don't want anybody to be denied for a claim if they need it. We want the insurance to be there for them when they need it.
You know, there's two reasons that I can think of off the top of my head to buy insurance. One is because someone else requires it, whether it be a landlord, a lender, or someone you're doing business with. And the other reason is because you want to have that coverage so you don't have to come out of pocket with a large amount of money that you can't foresee you're going to need. And I think you shoot yourself in the foot if you buy insurance and you don't really come clean or be transparent about if you're looking at the need side versus what somebody requires, because it's not going to be there.
Yeah, and that, it's tragic, and we've seen it happen where they don't. We've recommended coverage, or they need a certain kind of coverage and they didn't get it, and then something bad were to happen, and you could end up losing your business or assets that you've acquired, or have a serious hit against a business that's going to drag down that business for years. And insurance, that's what insurance is there for. It's for the large things that keep you from going out of business. If you were to pay this claim out of pocket, it could put you out of business. And that's exactly what insurance is for, is to cover those so you can continue to operate your business, continue to function, and have the insurance company take care of that issue, that situation that happened to your business.
You know, people really do need to understand it, because you make the point, in my opinion, about insurance, whether it's personal or business, is, not all losses are multi-million dollars. They're not ones you read about in the newspaper where there's been a huge jury award. If you're able to cover $10,000 yourself, but not 100, then you need to be covered at least to that 100 hypothetically. And I think that's so critical that people, again, do the right thing and make sure that they're buying insurance for the right reasons.
Yes, definitely. And there are sometimes, we work with our clients if they do have a claim to see how much are we looking at it costing. If it is a minimal expense, sometimes it may not even be worth filing a claim, because we always look at renewals when that comes up to try to minimize the premium. And if sometimes people don't want to admit it or talk about it, but sometimes it's just a business expense. It is a part of doing business to just make this problem go away.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. Anything else on commercial auto that we need to understand today?
No, just, kind of keep in mind that as a business grows, you may not have needed it initially, but as you grow, it may become a situation where you need it. It is generally more expensive because the liability limits are higher. Usually on commercial policy, we recommend $1 million liability versus, $100,000, $300,000 on a personal auto, just because the liability for the business is greater. And it does help a lot of companies get bigger work. If they have all that in place, they can start a big job with a big company a lot faster than ones that don't have it and have to put it in place.
Well, that makes sense. And I want to we've got a couple of minutes left to talk a little bit more about the importance of having a knowledgeable agent. I mean, these recent disasters and like flood coverage. I have a client that had flood coverage, but then when they calculated what they were going to get back, replacement cost less depreciation, they weren't going to get that much back because of the depreciation. It wasn't replacement cost, as you see in homeowners and whatnot. And this is where having a good agent would explain to you, this is what you're covered for. Talk a little bit about how important it is, and I know it's a little self-serving, of having a great agent with the minute or so we have left.
Well, I think especially on the commercial side, because businesses change every year. They grow, they contract, they expand, that your commercial insurance agent is reviewing your policy and your coverages every year. We've had a few instances where their previous agent did not review their coverages on property insurance, and the property value went up, but the coverage never changed. And then, unfortunately, a fire happened, and they did not have the coverage that they were hoping to have when it came time to rebuild. Also, you made the point about depreciation and replacement value. There are different valuations that they place on property insurance. You've got replacement cost versus actual cost, which is the depreciation. Obviously, replacement cost is higher, but it may be something that you want, especially on a newer type building versus an older building. So that's kind of stuff we need to review.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't mean to pound it in your head, but having a good agent to to write your policies. The agent not necessarily is trying to find the most pricey policy because they make a commission. If they're really on your team, which they need to be, they're going to find the best policy for you. So, Chris, anything else that you'd like to offer as a tip of wisdom, if you will, or a tip for the upcoming week, as we got about 30 seconds left on insurance?
Now, just again, if all business owners, if you're looking to get a large job with a large company that requires you to have insurance, please talk to your insurance agent because that can get expensive, and you want to take that into account when you're bidding a job.
Yeah, I think that's important, and that happened to one of my clients recently. So a good piece of advice there. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. We've had Chris Wehe with us again with the Koch Insurance Company. Chris, if somebody just wants to reach out and ask you a question or perhaps talk to you about insurance, what's the best way for them to contact you?
You can call us at 281-417-3000, or our website is kochig.com.
Again, thank you, Chris, for coming in today. I appreciate it as always. You've got great advice, and I think you're a great agent and an agent that people deserve in their business. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our final break for the day. And I want to remind you as we go into our break, if you have a question or comment during or after the show or just some question about your business, feel free to always email me at Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. We're going to take our break, and we'll be right back, and I'm going to talk about my Silver Fox tip of the week. Who knew I would end up where I am today? So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your question. Get seen on TV or YouTube and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Sponsor your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and your host of the Weekly Business Hour. We're in our final segment of today's program. This is where we talk about the Silver Fox Advisor Tip of the Week. This week, I'm going to talk a little bit about who knew I would end up where I am today. But before I do that, I want to make an offer to you. If you're listening to the show and your business is located here in the Montgomery County area or surrounding area, I would encourage you to reach out to me at rick@irlonestar.com about a potential sponsorships. You know, sponsorships on community radio to me are one of the greatest values around because you truly become part of the Lone Star community. So if you've got some questions, I'll be glad to send you some information and love to have you too as part of the Weekly Business Hour. Who knew I would end up where I am today? Well, that's an interesting topic. I suspect that all of us have asked that question at one time or another in the life of our business, particularly after we've got a year or two or a few years under our belt, and you wake up one day and you say, gosh, what did I do? How did I get here? And I think that's an important question to ask in a positive way to businesses. I call it taking the mirror test. You know, the old expression, look in the mirror and tell me what you see. And I think that's important from time to time to allow yourself that time. And it particularly could be done when you're away from the business. If you're driving to and from work or an appointment, don't go to sleep at the wheel, but just take a few minutes and look in the mirror and say, where is my business today? I think you need to take some time once you're out of the car to look at some of your metrics. I know a bunch of folks that are in business, a number of people that follow their metrics very closely. Unfortunately, most people don't follow their metrics. They don't set goals as far as increase in business, not just that goal of I want more business, but actual numbers or units or expansions, whatever. They don't set any kind of metrics. And I think it's important to have some basic, simple metrics. And I think what's really, really important to me about those metrics is there are your metrics. Every industry has metrics. They're available to you online and resources at the library where you can see how you compare to other businesses. But at the end of the day, it's your business and your ability to set metrics that make sense to you and your business and your growth plans and what it is in your mind, because at the end of the day, it's your business. And that's what this is all about. So ask yourself the question, where is my business today? The next thing is I think you need to ask yourself, what was and is my vision? So if time has passed, I would assume you had some kind of vision when you started the business, and it's important to take stock of that vision and to see exactly what it was, if you can remember it. I know some folks kind of write down their vision, or they call it a mission statement, whatever, and they put it in a drawer or put it in a file. Or I saw somebody the other day, it actually pops up and it's their homepage, it's their screensaver. They incorporated into what their vision for their business was. Well, I think you need to have that vision, obviously, and it needs to be defined just more than, I want to be successful in business. I want to be successful for myself and my family. I want to be successful for my employees, whatever it might be. You need to have a business for your, a vision for your business that fits the situation as we start out. And then what is your vision today, now that you've been in business for a while? I was just talking to an individual who's been in business for 10 years, and we talked about a little bit about vision and what they saw. I typically ask a question in the show, and I asked it today of our guest, Dick Schissler. What is your vision for Lone Star Community Radio down the road? Where are you headed? And again, people need to ask these questions, especially business owners. And I also think that's a question that you need to share, maybe just a little bit, but you need to share with your family. And because a lot of times we forget about our families. They're sitting there, they're watching us, they may be helping us in the business, but they don't know what's really going on. And most of the time, they don't have a big picture. And I think it's important that you communicate that vision to your family. It's also important, maybe in a different way, that you communicate it to your banker. If you have a banker, you communicate it to your vendors. Again, over coffee or whatever, put together a little vision that you feel comfortable communicating to your vendors. In other words, you've got a vision statement, and you may have 2 or 3 examples of it that you, depending on who you're talking to, because of confidentiality or things that are brewing that you just don't want to publicly talk about at this point. But most importantly and last, communicate that vision to your employees. Your employees should come to work every day and know what your vision is for the business, and they need to buy into it. And I think that's just so important, that you have that vision, that culture, that mission statement, call it what you want, but that vision is clear, and your employees understand that vision, and they have accepted it, and they're willing to work towards it each and every day. Because I'm going to be frank with you. You can go read books. There are a ton of books out there about leadership and company growth and successful companies versus unsuccessful companies and all that. And if you dig down into any of those books, you're going to find the term vision or some derivative of it. It's going to at least take up a chapter. And at least they're going to talk about the vision of the founders, the current management, whatever, that have a vision, and that vision has been communicated effectively to the employees, hopefully the vendors, and in the case of a small business, hopefully to your family. So put that vision together in your own mind. You don't need to be a wordsmith, but you need to have direction every day. Now, what do you do at this point? Well, the first thing is you need to, if you will, and I hate to use this word, but codify. You need to put that vision together. Preferably just write it down. Do it in longhand if you don't want to sit down at the computer. Put it down in front of you, or say it to yourself, and make sure that you accept and that each and every word of your vision, if you will, makes sense to you, and it all kind of comes together for you. Because this is going to become a tool for you to communicate with, which is the second thing. Once you've done it, then communicate it. Realize, secondly, that a vision is something that adjusts and change. It's got to be moldable. It's got to be ability to change it, but you don't want to completely change it. Otherwise, you need to go back, restate it, and absolutely recommunicate it. But at least once a year when you do your business plan, sit down and take a look at your vision. But again, I find it a very neat thing to do it while I'm driving down the road. So I encourage you, think about your vision, write down your vision, and make sure that you communicate your vision. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're to the end of today's show, but I want to ask you to please put a note on your calendar to join us again next Monday right here on irlonestar.com, FM 106.1, 104.5, and all the other media outlets that carry the Weekly Business Hour. Remember, again, you too can sponsor the Weekly Business Hour. Just contact me at rick@irlonestar.com for details. And remember, a podcast of today's show will be up on the Weekly Business Hour page of irlonestar.com, Facebook, and on the YouTube channel, among others. So please look for it. If you have any questions, missed something in today's show, go look at the podcast. Until next week, stay engaged this week and keep your focus on what counts on your business.
Thanks for checking out this podcast of Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. If you enjoyed this recording, make sure to check out our past shows online at irlonestar.com or their respective video or podcast formats on YouTube, Google Play, or iTunes. If you have any questions regarding the show, either it being about sponsorships or questions for the host, contact the station manager at dick@irlonestar.com or call the station at 936-647-3776. This show was recorded in downtown Conroe, Texas at the Lone Star Community Radio Studios, and Lone Star Community Radio reserves all rights to this recording and images.